Hey everybody, and welcome to the Fairfax Sports Report. My name is Greg Wyshynski of the Connection Newspapers, BJ Kubaroulis of the Connection Newspapers, Jeff Graham of the Connection Newspapers. As you can tell by my wonderful headgear, it is a special show this evening. It's the year-end edition of the Fairfax Sports Report. Happy holidays to everybody out there. Hope everybody's having a good and happy and healthy holiday season. We have highlights of the big Division VI Virginia AAA state championship football game between Oakton and Lansdowne that we are going to show you in a few moments and break down that game. We're also going to go over some highlights from the Northern Region Classic Wrestling Tournament. But the most important thing that's going to happen today, ladies and gentlemen, is the 35th annual FSN Nurny Awards, honoring the best coaches, athletes, teams, fans, programs, everything that you can think of in this year of sports. We are going to discuss it and give out some awards later in this show, so please stay tuned. I guarantee you've never seen anything like that on this station.
And Greg, we should really say that they're called the Nurny Awards in honor of our producer, Brian Nern, who has been the best at what he does. And that's why we're honoring people as the best at what they do, because our producer, Brian Nern, is absolutely the best at what he does.
It's safe to say that without Brian Nern and electricity, there'd be no show.
Absolutely.
It's true.
Yes.
Jeff?
Did he pay you $50 to see it?
It's 25. And he promised me Greavies.
The Virginia AAA football championship game was held last weekend, and BJ, you had the pleasure of being down there for what has been called one of the most dominating upsets in probably the history of the championship game.
Yeah, I mean, going into that game, and obviously we did the show last week, and we all made our picks, and, you know, there was a guy to my left and a guy to my right that both picked Lansdowne. You know, the guy in the middle, which would be me, did pick Oakton, and, you know, the reason I did that is because I've watched Oakton steamroll through the postseason. After they beat Westfield, they were not going to be stopped. And honestly, though, guys, I have to admit, going into that game, you know, you cover Oakton all year, so naturally you pick them. But, boy, I didn't think I was going to see what I saw. I talked to some reporters when I got down there, and, you know, I thought it might be a close game. I thought it might be whoever makes the big play at the end wins the game. But I'll tell you, it was, like you said, the most dominating upset I've ever seen or witnessed personally. You know, obviously, Lansdowne had a 27-game winning streak going into this game, and they won last year's state title, returning state champs. We're trying to be the first Division VI team in Hampton Roads history to repeat as the state champs. And they have a receiver there by the name of Percy Harvin, who lines up at running back, lines up as a receiver, obviously, and even lined up as quarterback, and torched Robinson last year for 400 and some, you know, total yardage, 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So the kid was a heck of a player, and going into that, everybody thought that, except for Oakton, that was going to go Lansdowne's way.
And no question, like I said, I've said on this show before, I was down there last year for the title game. Percy Harvin had, without a doubt, the greatest single game I've ever seen a high school athlete have in every facet of the game. But like our own friend Pete Bendorf said on the broadcast here on FSN, there's no question that when people look back at this game, the first name that comes to mind is not going to be Percy Harvin. Right. It's going to be Keith Payne.
And boy, Keith Payne is probably going to be a name that we hear a bunch throughout the next couple of years. Obviously, he's verbally committed to go play at the University of Virginia. The guy's gigantic. I mean, you see him and you see a Division I running back playing with some high school kids. The guy is dominant. He steamrolled people. He torched Lansdowne for 250 yards on 25 carries and ran for 4 touchdowns. And so, you know, it was just a dominating performance. He did that in the Division VI region final against Westfield. Just was a force to be reckoned with. He broke a couple of big runs, and once he did that, he really took the heart out of Lansdowne. I mean, those guys were walking around with their heads down.
And Jeff, you know, we have had many a debate in the newsroom this year about Keith Payne, about Evan Royster, about where those two athletes rank when it comes to their contributions to their respective teams during this football season. You've always been a Royster guy. I've always been a Royster guy. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of coming around on this Keith Payne thing.
Yeah, I mean, as far as, I think size-wise, when you just look at the kid on the field, when he's got, you know, pads on, especially, you know, watching highlights from that Westfield game in the Northern Region Championship, I mean, he just looked like a giant on the field. And, you know, when you combine a little speed with that, and, you know, he's a very confident kid, and it looked like he was getting very good blocking from his line. I guess not surprising to see what he did when you go look back a little bit. And for Oakton, it kind of completes a circle for Northern Region teams. The top 4 now, Robinson, Centerville, Westfield, and Oakton, have all won a state title within the past 6 years. And people have said that that's the best district in the state, and I can't argue with that.
Now with Robinson in there, I mean, it's what they call it, a meat grinder. It's what they've called it all year. And went down to the state final, and they cakewalked through them. Yeah. It's like they've seen the best of the best. They played for the state championship. When they played against Westfield in the Division VI region final, that was really the state championship because that was a tight race. They played for the state championship the whole year. I mean, they played the toughest teams in the state.
Absolutely.
Lansdowne could not hang.
Absolutely. Well, as our good friend Warner Wolf says, let's go to the videotape and check out some highlights from the Oakton-Lansdowne big Division VI final. This game, of course, was moved, wasn't it, PJ?
Yeah, it was supposed to be played at the University of Richmond, I believe, and it was supposed to be a doubleheader with the Division V game right there. You saw the first drive Lansdowne to the game. They forced a turnover, and Sean Purcell recovers, and that's Keith Payne's first touchdown.
Where did they move the game to?
They moved it to Darling Stadium in Hampton, so it was actually almost like a home field advantage for the Lansdowne Eagles from the beach area. And you see Donnie Kirby throwing a pass right there, just completely short. That's McDaniel, a receiver who was over 1,000 yards and over 30 touchdowns. Quite a passing game, but honestly, I was very, very not impressed. That's, Mark Davis right there making an interception, but I was not impressed at all with anything Lansdowne did. All they did was throw it to the flat and try to have a guy make a play. Here's Keith Payne's, one of his touchdowns, and obviously you're going to see him now run to the crowd and celebrate. He did that after every touchdown. So almost another interception. The Oakton defense was so impressive. They never flinched. Keith Payne right there, you see him again breaking another big one.
It doesn't seem like this quarterback had much going for him.
Well, all they did was throw it to the flat and try to have a guy make a play. The kid's got incredible numbers, but it was really, people were very shocked with their offense. It wasn't what it was, renowned to be. Everybody thought they were, immortals. Here's Taylor Nalepa slowing down a bit. I was making fun of him after the game. He thought he had a touchdown, but he told me he was hoping Percy Harvin would try to come make the tackle on him so he could drop a shoulder on him, actually. But here's Payne again. The kid just had a monster day.
And when you look at him going up against defenses, once he hits the hole, just look at the defensive backs he's going up against. I'm guessing he has 50 or 60 pounds on those kids.
Kids are afraid to get in his way. And here's Sean Purcell making a touchdown. Sean also went in on offense a couple times.
We should probably point out that the score is Oakton 28.
Right, so. Yeah. Well, hey, guys, by the way.
Gave Phil Levine a heart attack there for a second, I'm pretty sure.
By the way, Oakton did win the state title. This is the incorrect score. But, what a game. They were just dominant guys in every facet of the game.
Yeah.
And Percy Harvin, everybody, wants to talk about him. They were the number 10 ranked team nationally.
Yeah.
Let's put that into perspective. They were ranked 10 in the nation. And Percy is the AP Player of the Year for Virginia. He got that as a junior. He's currently that player. He's reigning as that player. So Keith Payne, when I talked to him after the game, I said, everybody wants to talk about Percy Harvin. He says, I deal with that every day. I've dealt with that all year with Royster in the Northern Region. Everybody wants to talk about Royster. And, now he says, I think I'm one of the number 1 recruits in the nation, and I think he proved it.
Now, Jeff, obviously Harvin is living a lot off of the reputation he built last year. You talked to a player this week who said, if you look at the tape, Lansdowne has played teams that aren't exactly the caliber, let's say, that Oakton's had to face in the Concord District this year.
Yeah, I talked to Drew Dudzik, who's the quarterback over at Centerville, who's going to graduate this year, and he said when you look at the tapes of some of the teams they were playing, it was like us playing Fairfax, and Centerville destroyed Fairfax this year. But I think that's why you get high rankings when you have an undefeated record and you're coming out of a region that has churned out some pretty good athletes over the year as far as football concerned, and you're averaging 50, 60 points a game and destroying these teams. I think that's a lot of what the buildup was for Lansdowne. That they're unstoppable, they're putting up all these points, but it's hard to really when you send a team like Oakton in there who's physical and plays good defense. You can only really, you can only know what's going to happen when you see those teams on the field. And we saw what happened. They put up 7 points against a good defense.
But that begs the question then, what happened last year with Robinson? Why was that such a dominant game for the Eastern Region team? Were they a better team? Was Lansdowne a better team last year? Did Robinson, were they shocked by Harvin? I mean, I just wonder what the difference was.
From what I remember from the game, Lansdowne dominated in almost every aspect of that game. I mean, I remember them being a lot better defensively than they obviously were this year. And Harvin clearly had an impact in every single facet of the game. Special teams, as a defensive back, and of course offensively, where he was practically unstoppable for most of the game. So it doesn't seem like it's the same Lansdowne team that I saw, at least, that went up against Oakton this year, because from what I understand, from what I've seen, from what I've read, Oakton pretty much had their way with them.
And 2 years ago when Westfield beat Lansdowne in the state finals, that was a 35-14 match. So in 2 out of 3 years, a Northern Region team has put a hurting on on Lansdowne.
Should be noted that they've been there for the past 3 years consecutively, and Coach Beatty down there, actually from this area, I believe, went to Chantilly, I want to say, is down there and coaching, a beach team, and they seem to be dominating. Maybe it's something, you take a guy out of the Northern Region and you put him down there in the Eastern Region, and maybe good things happen. I mean, I'm from that area, and I know the level of football there does not compare to the level of football here, and that the numbers say that. Out of the last 6 state champions, 4 of them have been Northern Region schools, and all 6 times a Northern Region school has been in the state championship.
Indeed. So. Well, I think we touched on it last week. I think it deserves mentioning again this week, which is, what does this win do for the Oakton football program, and specifically for Coach Joe Thompson? Yeah. Now, all of a sudden, Oakton, Coach Thompson, Keith Payne, obviously, all of their statures rise in a big, big way with this win. Let's talk specifically about Coach Thompson. Is he now in that echelon of great coaches in the Northern Region?
I think it would have to be. I think he's got youth maybe working for him and against him. A lot of times, people look at the more experienced coach who's won a title and says, that's, they hold them in higher regard. But, he's youthful. He's been on, he was a coordinator on Pete Bendorf's team that went to the finals a couple years ago. Now he's won a state title. And, it begs the question, are they the top team in the district now? It's been, 6 years since Centerville won their title. They just beat Westfield and Robinson on their state run, so maybe Oakton's the cream of the crop as we speak.
They rise to the top.
You took it right out of my mouth. But and you make a good point. It is experience. Those guys that have been around, Bendorf and Verbanix, and those guys have been around for a long time, and they've established Skinner. They've established themselves in their roles, and I think Joe just did that. I think with this win, I think that means he's here. And right now he's the man in this Northern Region. I mean, he went the furthest, and he's got the ring to prove it. And I do want to send some credit to their defensive coordinator, Jason Rowley. Wow, I mean, he's had some tough assignments this year. He devised a scheme that shut down Royster in that title game for the D6 region title. He shut down Percy Harvin, probably the number 1 or 2 prospect in the country. And yes, Keith Payne was out there on the field actually doing it. But, you talk to any defensive player on that team, and they'll tell you it was the scheme that was put in to corral Harvin. And, Jason Rowley really is probably one of the guys rising to the top now, and maybe could be in contention for, any job that may be opening up. That's the way I see it. If you slay those types of giants, those types of big names, I feel like you've got what it takes.
Oh yeah, and absolutely. I mean, Joe Thompson just a few years ago was the rising star coordinator, and now look what he's done in just a few years at the helm at Oakton. Obviously, all credit goes to him and the coaching staff for getting this team ready every single week this year, and especially in the postseason where it counted. One more thing on Oakton that I think we should mention, and I think it's also something that Coach Bendorf mentioned on the telecast, which is they really got rolling.
Yeah.
Right after everything with the eligibility investigation got cleared up. Is that a coincidence, or do you think that had something to do with it?
Talked to Coach Thompson after the game, and in fact, to pick up a copy of the Connection newspapers, because I did do a little story on, little plug there. But I did address the issue with Coach Thompson after the game, and it was something that they really rallied around. It was something that he said, after this happened, our guys went out there, they got more classy. They shook the hands of their opponents. You know, they don't know who it was that sparked this whole thing, okay? But they shook everyone's hands. You know, they did everything classy. They helped everybody up off the field. And, you know, credit to them, because this could have folded a lot of teams. And Joe said it. He said this could have turned a lot of people bitter. And, boy, that's the honest to God truth. It really could have shattered some programs.
Moral of the story, stay classy, San Diego. Absolutely. Jeff Graham, you, my friend, covered the D5 title game. Our friends from Stonebridge were there, and unfortunately it was not a sweep for the Northern region.
Not a happy result, but it honestly could have been a victory for Stonebridge. You know, they went down to Todd Stadium in Newport News, took on Hampton, who had, you know, won 16 state titles. I think that's the most out of any program in the state in Division 5. And Stonebridge lost 15-8. It was a game that Stonebridge got behind 15-0 going into the third quarter. And then they went to the spread offense. They're a single wing team mostly, but can go to the spread when necessary. You know, scored a touchdown, and they were actually driving in the game's final minutes. Got down to the 2-yard line and fumbled when it appeared that a touchdown was imminent. And they didn't get the ball back after that. You know, Hampton was able to run the clock out. So I think they outgained Hampton by about 100 or so yards total offense. So it's a game that they could have won, but they committed 4 turnovers, 2 inside Hampton's 5. And you know, as we all know, when you turn the ball over in a big game, you're probably not going to win.
But all credit to Stonebridge, of course. I mean, going through the Liberty District, going through the Northern Region playoffs, with a team that a lot of people felt might not be as good as it was this year because of the graduations and that sort of thing. You got to hand it to them. They went through some pretty tough competition to get to this game.
Yeah, I mean, I coming into the year, I definitely didn't think that they were as good as a team as they were last year when they lost in the region finals in AA. So to come in AAA and get to the state finals, it's a good thing for their program. Terrence Glenn, who's a junior quarterback, had almost 300 yards total offense in the game against Hampton. Really impressed. I mean, some people from Hampton's sidelines or coach staff were coming up to him after the game, shaking his hand for his impressive performance. So he'll be back next year. I think that they bring back most of their offense. So it'll be a question of whether the defensive side of the ball can kind of hang with that. So, you know, and if they do, we could be talking about them again in this game next year.
Another dominant force in the Liberty. I mean, they just seem to come in and take no prisoners. I mean, they didn't lose to one Liberty team this year, and that says a lot about a program to be able to go from what's supposed to be a lower level to a higher level and completely dominate that higher level.
Absolutely.
I mean, what a, you know, that program just, that speaks volumes about the coaching over there. You know, Mickey Thompson and Sam Plank over there, one of the assistants, a bunch of good guys that really good athletic minds that have been around for a while that are, wow, pretty impressive.
Absolutely. I want to also mention briefly the Northern Region Classic Wrestling Tournament was held on Saturday. It was supposed to be a 2-day tournament, got cut down to 1 day because of inclement weather on Friday afternoon and evening. Pretty big day for a couple of teams. Robinson wins the team title. They win 2 individual awards, including Lee Karsten getting first place at 152 with a pinfall in the championship final Saturday night. Langley, a big day. 4 individual champions, Michael Bowman, Kevin Canto, David Helmer, who had a big upset early in the tournament against Ryan Mcculloch from Robinson, who was a regional champion last year, and Colin Zoski.
Talk about that one now,
winning
Greg.
Perhaps the match of the night in a sort of a double overtime format against Mustafa Ibrahim from West Springfield, who is one of the best wrestlers in the state around that weight class. Zoski won at 125. This was a match that really got heated because Ibrahim had a 2-1 lead, and then Zoski was given a penalty point because the referees accused Ibrahim of stalling. The West Springfield coaches vehemently disagreed, and after the match, there was a bit of a brouhaha with one of the coaches screaming and yelling at the referee. It was pretty out of the ordinary, to be honest with you, for the Northern Region Classic, but really a great match, and you got to give credit to this kid. That's the sort of win that can get a kid going early in the season and get him on a roll. I want to also mention Mike Waters from Centerville getting a huge win over Carl Landers of Tallwood. Landers is right now ranked #1 in the state, and Waters lost to him in the state tournament last year, so that's a big win for him. And also Patrick Finch from Lee is a kid who tore his ACL in the quarterfinals of the Classic last year. He comes back this year, beats the #1 seed, Jake Hayslip of Lake Braddock in the quarterfinals, and then goes on to win the individual title at 215 over Tim Goodsell of McLean. So it's a pretty big story there for them. So a good kickoff to the season. You're looking for big things from Robinson. You saw some good things there. Langley represented itself well, and also Westfield had 2 winners in the finals as well. So it was a good kickoff to the season for a couple of teams that we'll obviously have our eye on for the rest of the season.
And it's a good measuring stick to kind of see how the kids will take this and then progress to, I guess ending in the, either the state finals or, regionals or districts. But like you said, I mean, going to one day, I know it was tough for the kids. I guess the matches were shortened a little bit. But I think you're going to see some kids that may be disappointed in this. Some of the football players who are just coming back, from Robinson, Westfield, some of those programs will do better, I think, as the year goes on.
That's a great point. Obviously, I mentioned Mcculloch before. He's wrestling above his weight. There's a couple of wrestlers for Robinson that wrestled above their weight. Right. They're still trying to get down to where they're going to be for most of the season. So you're right. This isn't exactly a perfect science when it comes to indicating what we might see in the regionals, but it does give you a sense where some of these kids do figure into the picture as we get closer to the postseason.
And it sets up some revenge matches because some of these kids that lost are going to be looking down the road and wanting to win.
Certainly does. All right, enough of this tomfoolery. It's time for some real tomfoolery. When we come back, it's the 38th annual Nurny Awards here on the Fairfax Sports Report, and do stay tuned because it is a sight to be seen.
Keep it locked.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the 39th Annual Nurny Awards. Greg Wyshynski of the Connection Newspapers, BJ Kubaroulas, Connection Newspapers, Jeff Graham of the Connection Newspapers. A little bit of background on these awards. These were voted on by us in our conference room after much deliberation. I mean, we really, really, really deliberated for what, a good 10, 15 minutes on these?
I would say as long as it took me to drink that wonderful cup of coffee from the Connection,
yes,
which was about 7 to 8 minutes.
7 to 8 minutes. Fantastic. They are named the Nurny Awards because of our producer, Brian Nern, who we love and honor with these awards. They are in his name, and we've been doing it for 42 years, and I don't think there's any way we couldn't do any of this without Brian Nern.
I remember the 46th year when we did it, when actually it was Brian Nern's first season. He was just getting used to things, and it was his undying effort that actually, gave us the idea. We're like, this guy is such a hard worker. Well known, well respected in the public. And, by the 48th year when we first started, it was just, it
was huge. And then it became tradition. Gigantic. And in fact, I don't think I need to tell you all what you're all vying for here tonight. You are vying, of course, for the Nurny itself. And ladies and gentlemen, I can only imagine your anticipation at seeing who wins the Nurny this year.
Can we get a close-up on that Nurny?
I'm sure we will at some point. Let's move on to the first category. The first category this evening is Upset of the Year. This is the biggest upset of the year. And if the nominees, I believe, will be coming up in a moment. The nominees for Upset of the Year. There it is, right there. Brad Saragusa beating Mike Spooner in the state cross-country meet. Spooner, of course, came into that as the favorite. Saragusa got the big win. Marshall Field Hockey defeating Woodson in the region semis. That, of course, was a huge victory for Statesman Field Hockey, which went on to win the regional title. And Westfield Volleyball ends the Loudoun Valley streak.
By the way, that Marshall Field Hockey defeating Woodson was in the finals.
The finals?
That would be a typo.
But they beat them, though. That's the point.
They did beat them.
All right. Yes. Without further ado, never ceases to amaze me, this show. Without further ado, the upset of the year is...
Dun, 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 dun.
Marshall Field Hockey defeating Woodson. Ladies and gentlemen, round of applause for Marshall Field Hockey.
That is unbelievable.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, star of stage and screen, BJ.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the 2005 FSN Nurny.
You got the little microphone up there.
That's what you're all fighting for tonight, folks.
I think that was.
Can get dirty. It's bigger than the Golden Globe, at least.
I taste like microphone.
Ladies and gentlemen, star of stage and screen, BJ Kubaroulas with the next award.
Thank you. Please stay seated.
Folks, I'd like to take a minute before I give out this award for Game of the Year to give a shout out to a young man from Ashburn that is a big fan of the show, and his uncle's really a heck of a guy. Jordan Sanders from Ashburn is a good guy, likes the show a lot, and Jordan, we hope you're watching tonight, and we hope you're enjoying the show. For Game of the Year, before I open it up, I'm going to throw it to the nominations. Woodson goes to quadruple overtime in the state soccer tournament against Thomas Dale. while Stonebridge beat Madison in the region semis this year, Stonebridge's football team, and Westfield versus Centerville football. And guys, before we select a winner, let's talk a bit about the quadruple overtime. Boy, when it gets to that level, it's almost it almost gets into kicks, right, Greg?
It almost got to kicks. Thomas Dale won that game in the final seconds of the fourth overtime period, and it was a game in which it was a really tightly played game. I think the only goal came in that overtime period, and Thomas Dale wins the state soccer title. The Stonebridge-Madison football game was one that came down to the final seconds too.
It did. It was. I think Terrence Glenn scored a touchdown with 15 seconds remaining, and that was in the region semifinals. So if Stonebridge doesn't win that game, they don't even, they don't move onward,
No.
and then they go on and play in the state finals. So
And that was a heck of a matchup the first time during the regular season. It came down to an overtime game, and Madison, boy, they should have won that in regulation. They opted not to take the field goal. So a lot of playoff implications with that.
it easily could have been Madison going to the state finals this year.
Absolutely.
Well, who on earth wins this award?
Well, we should talk before we give out the award about Westfield Centerville. Now, that was a heck of a game. Westfield Centerville football. I was at that game, and obviously everybody knows who was there because there was about 7,000 people there from our FSN viewership that tune in every week, and the game was all over TV. Real controversial ending. There was an interception in the end zone. Drew Dudzik heaved it up to his favorite target, Cameron Dose, and Evan Royster went up and made the pick. He also had a couple touchdowns that game. So, heck of a game. Let's see who gets this award, guys. What do you say?
Why not?
And for Game of the Year, ladies and gentlemen, Westfield Centerville football. And Jeff Graham, we're going to throw it to you for the next Nurny.
Great.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
It's well choreographed.
Well, I don't have anybody to thank as of yet, so we're going to go on to our next Nurny Award. This is the Ty Pennington Rebuilding Award.
And why is it called the Ty Pennington
Greg,
Rebuilding?
I think this is one of your favorite shows on Sunday.
Oh,
Sunday
absolutely.
night.
Extreme Makeover. I'm a big fan of Ty Pennington because
And
he's always thinking about other people. I knew that your father meant a lot to you, so that's why I built this room special out of his old shoes, because I know you miss your father so much.
Dude, that show is ridiculous, man. It's like they have one theme, like, oh, this little 10-year-old girl loves bugs.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have her live in a hornet's
Right.
nest for the
And
next
then,
7 years.
And then what happens when she's no longer 10 years old? She's 12, and all she cares about is Brad Pitt, and now she's living in a bug house.
Oh, Jesus.
Honestly.
We have live hornets we brought in from Saudi Arabia.
No.
Sting
And
you to
then
death.
and then she doesn't care, and she wants a horse.
So anyway,
If you
Just
want
gotta go after
a
doing
good
it.
cry, I'd suggest
Extreme Makeover.
watching that Extreme Makeover show. Let's look at the list of the nominees. Lake Braddock football. This is a team that was, Greg, 0-10
Turned it
2
around.
years ago, and turned it around under Coach Jim Poitras.
turn around.
Chantilly football, another team, like you said, 2 years
0-10.
ago, 0-10.
And they turned it
they were
around.
4-6
Bright eyes.
4-6 this year.
Yeah.
Heck of a rebuilding job there.
We should also say Wakefield turned it around too, but they were 1-9.
They're, winning one game for Wakefield is like winning 10. And Marshall High School. Marshall High School. We're not talking about one program
program.
here. BJ,
We're
you saw this
talking-
turnaround.
We're talking about a school that has completely turned around everything, okay? I mean, they brought in a great staff. They just brought in 2 new soccer coaches. That tells you something. Their field hockey program went to the state finals for the first time, and I think since dinosaurs were walking the earth.
Dinosaurs were on the earth, yeah.
Their football team went 500 for the first time since 99, 98, somewhere in that time, and they haven't had much better lucks, in those previous years to that. And they've got their baseball team went 1-13 this year. But the point is, when it got go time in the tournament, Liberty tournament, they upset Madison, who has been a perennial powerhouse in baseball in this area. So that whole school has seen a gigantic athletic turnaround. It's just a matter of getting the right coaches and the right mix of people, and they've got a great athletic director over there that really cares, and he's very energetic, and that school's going places. So, if there was ever a school that deserved the Ty Pennington Award, I think it might be Marshall, but I don't know. I don't want to tip any cards
Madison
here.
Athletic Boosters, send your checks to BJ Kubarulis. And the winner is...
Turn around every now and then.
Okay. Karaoke here.
BJ Kubarulis, Marshall High School. Congratulations. Greg Wyszynski,
Oh, thank you, Jeff.
May I introduce you?
Thank you, Jeff. Oh, something just fell. All right, stepped on something. Hey, that was professional. Hey, the next category is the best fans. And this is always a pretty contentious category. I mean, it's hard to say across the board that any program has the best fans. I think it kind of differs from sport to sport. But let's see the nominees for best fans this year. W.T. Woodson obviously packed the house for basketball when their team was undefeated. That place was a very, very tough place to play and a tough place to get into. Westfield, the Bulldogs pretty much support every team. I mean, from volleyball to football to every sport that I can think of, they have fans out at the game. And, of course, the Robinson Rams, the Robinson Boosters are some of the best boosters around. And it should be noted that Robinson-Westfield was the highest-grossing Division VI playoff game in the region this year in football. So, without further ado, let's see who wins this award. And the winner of the Best Fans Award is Westfield. The Westfield Bulldogs, ladies and gentlemen.
Congratulations, Westfield.
BJ Kubarulis, creep to the mic like a phantom.
I'm going to try to creep to the mic, but I'm just not very phantom-like.
Fantastic.
Folks, this award is very special to my heart. It's an award that we don't get a whole lot of time to talk about this award, throughout the year, and it takes a very special effort to get this award. There's teams that practice every day, and wrestlers that wrestle hard every day, and teachers that teach, and go over lesson plans and that sort of thing. But when it comes to referees, gentlemen, exactly what are they doing in their off time? Are they practicing throwing their flags? Are they writing down new calls to make?
Well, judging from this next award, I think they might be sitting too close to their television sets, BJ.
Yes, at this point, they will be drop kicking me on their television set. This award, gentlemen, this Nurny, goes to the worst officiated game in the history of the Northern Region.
Of games.
Of games, I think, actually, of actual athletics altogether. We're talking, from preschool to professional to senior Olympics. It ranges everything. And so let's see the nominees, guys. Let's throw up the nominees for worst officiated games. Right off the bat, we're going to see LC Bird versus Oakton football. It was 2 weeks ago in the Division VI AAA state semifinals. Actually at LC Bird. That'll tell you something about this award.
A little bit of homerism.
Lake Braddock versus Robinson football.
Yes.
And any girls basketball game. So, Greg, actually, you were at the Lake Braddock versus Robinson football.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
There were more flags thrown than passes thrown. And that should tell you something right there.
Yeah.
And Jeff, any girls basketball game, as we both know,
A lot of times it turns into a free throw shooting contest because that whistle continues to blow.
Herndon versus Hayfield girls this year, 81 free throws shot.
is that all?
Just thought I'd drop that
a
science
light
on
night.
you. So now, for worst officiated game, we've seen the nominees. And the Nurny goes to, shocker, LC Bird versus Oakton football.
That's homerism.
Thank you, sir.
It's all yours.
The next award, much like our last award, is one you may not want to receive. Biggest choke job. And there are, this award could go local as far as I'm concerned. Let's look at the nominees. The Washington Nationals.
wow.
Now here's a team that started off hot in Major League Baseball, their first year. Greg Wyshynski, us being Mets fans, happy to see their demise in the
Happy
second
to see
half.
them choke in the second half like they did.
Perry Ballard, one of BJ's favorites.
Impressive.
Didn't fare quite as well as we had hoped against Jimmy Lang in his boxing match earlier in the year. And
Yeah,
pigskin prognosticator Wyshynski.
it's great. It's great. Yeah.
Greg, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you're nominated?
What, you mean like how I was winning our prognostication pool in the Connection newspapers going into the final week and then somehow blew it,
That's correct.
allowing you to win for like the gajillionth time?
Yes.
Rich Sanders and I actually tied for the championship for the second year. So there we go.
That's great.
Biggest choke job. We've seen the nominees. I think I know who I'm voting for.
I think my vote was in.
I don't remember who I voted for.
And the winner Mr. Wyszynski.
That's great.
Congratulations, sir.
Give yourself a round of applause, man.
Your Nurny is in the mail. Mr.
Oh, is it
Wyszynski.
Oh,
Podium, sir.
Actually, Greg couldn't be here to accept this award, so he sent a videotape so that he could accept it on behalf of himself.
It's great. It's great. I'd like to thank the Academy. Coach of the Year is a very big award in these parts because I've always been of the mind, boys, that if it's not for a good coach, you don't have a good team. Agreed?
I agree. I think that's a good point.
And los nominees are Joe Thompson of Oakton Football. Hey, we've mentioned him once or twice.
Yeah, I think they've been all over FSN this year.
Tony Bentley of Wakefield Basketball, the architect of one of the most dominant teams I've seen in recent years, and also one of the most popular teams. This is a guy who not only built a winner, but built a team that the community rallied around. So that is why he's on this list. And Jen Carr of W.T. Woodson Girls Lacrosse led her team to a regional championship and a state championship after Coach Dara Bonham left. Bonham basically being the guy who built that program into a perennial winner. She takes over with a heaping spoonful of expectations and leads the team to the regional and state championship. Boys, in this category, we have 3 well-qualified coaches. Tell me a little bit about your thought process in selecting a winner.
Well, being that I followed Oakton all year,
Like a puppy.
and wrote more about them than I did growing up through high school about any project, test, paper, or essay. Obviously my vote's going the way of Joe Thompson. For a football program, it's really tough, to get through 14 weeks of football, keeping everybody healthy. Obviously, the things they went through off the field, that was a big part of why, I thought the way I did about, Joe possibly taking the award. Obviously they went through a lot, and it's been rehashed on the show plenty of times, but to keep those kids focused after something like that, and just to get out there and practice and get some football done and get out of this area, the northern region, with a regional title, is not an easy thing to do. So that's my thinking on Joe.
I think you're wrong, as you have been wrong many times this year. I think Jen Carr is probably the dark horse for this award, but I think Tony Bentley is the favorite. Now here is a coach of an Arlington County team, and Greg, as we know, Arlington County teams do not get any respect on this show. As far as
We try to give him respect.
we try to. We're playing in the National District.
Well, except for your joke about Wakefield before.
Sometimes it's tough to get respect. So, and I mean, here's a team that even shocked me as far as their talent level and what they were able to do in a very, I think, talented Northern Region basketball scene. So I'm going to give it to Tony Bentley if I'm voting.
Well, without further ado, the Nurny for Coach of the Year goes to Mr. Tony Bentley of Wakefield Basketball.
Very nice.
Congratulations, Tony.
Coach.
Great season. One I'm sure the folks in Arlington will never forget. And I believe it is now BJ Kubarulis who will present the next Nurny. We're getting to the nitty-gritty now, aren't we?
We're getting down to some of the Nurnies that people have coveted. I mean, when you talk about athletic achievement and working hard for an entire year, you're not thinking state championship. You're thinking Nurny. I mean, that's the way I think. I don't know about you guys.
These are the awards that people have to stay up until midnight to see.
Yeah,
It's true.
This isn't,
Yeah, these are the cream of the crop right here.
Yeah,
This is
absolutely.
like King Kong territory, Brokeback Mountain territory. Well,
Jarhead.
Chronicles of Narnia.
No. Well, yeah, that actually was an inspiration for the name of the awards.
just get up here and give out the award, will you please?
I'm coming.
And how appropriate it is that I gave out this award for Athlete of the Year. Got to see a bunch of athletes. In fact,
I think that's
I
what
am the
I think
fi-
that's what we do.
we give out awards.
We see athletes on a regular basis.
And we report on them, I believe.
Well, I was saying it's just funny because as a former winner of a Nurny for Athlete of the Year.
Yes.
That's what I was really
Your
getting
glory
at.
days at Cox.
Right. And these are the 81st Nurnies, as we mentioned
Right.
before. I accepted the 73rd Nurny for my badminton skills. I was also a heck of a chess player.
Master with the shuttlecock.
And also handy with a bow stick or bow staff.
As we'll be moving on now, and the nominees for Athlete of the Year are
Wow.
Got a bunch of people to mention here, guys. So let's run through them as we can, and we'll mention a bunch of people and what they've done for Northern Region sports. Some of these kids have graduated. Laura Reichert, I got to see her in her last year. Jeff, you covered her a bunch.
AAA state champion on the girls' side. Laura, as a junior, was a region and district champion. Lost in the states at the state tournament, but one of the top junior tennis players on the Eastern Coast.
We got Thomas Nolan, also a tennis player, played at Chantilly. Did he win a state title?
He was also a state champion this year as a junior. Wasn't expected to win, but really swept through the championships. Won a district title, won a region title.
And Greg, you're a fan of the breaststroke. I'm not sure if Steve Sharon of Robinson Swimming was stroking the butterfly, the free, or the back.
And I'm not sure if his name's exactly spelled right there.
It's a CH. It's an SH sound, but it's SCH.
Steve, we apologize.
It's neither here nor well, he's graduated. He won't. Well, unless he's home for the holidays. Well, that's neither here nor there. He was one of the swimmers that allowed Robinson to continue their dominance as a team at the state level. He graduated, but his legacy lives on. He set a bunch of records in the postseason last year, won a couple state titles, and obviously belongs in any discussion about Athlete of the Year.
And all three of us have had the opportunity to see Scotty Reynolds, two-time Northern Region Basketball Player of the Year from Herndon. Obviously, he's in that upper echelon, if you will, with some of the greats that have come through this area. Actually, we just did an article about that in our basketball preview, talking a little bit about Scotty's talent. And guys, putting him in perspective, where do you see him as one of the greats?
Well, as far as this region is concerned, he's right up there. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does in college. He's going to Oklahoma University, one of the top basketball universities in college. So and he's a kid that could go in and start right away for the Sooners. So here's a kid who I'm not gonna say he's NBA potential, but you never know.
And they're nationally ranked. OU is this year.
Absolutely.
Greg?
I don't think there's any question. When you talk to other coaches, there is a respect for the kind of game he has, a respect for the kind of the way he carries himself. And there's no question that I think he's going to go on to some really great things at the collegiate level and perhaps even professionally.
And might even be a better person than he is a basketball player. The guy is just an incredible person as well. Let's get those nominees back up. Let's check out another millionaire coming out of the Northern Region, Brandon Snyder. Jeff, I'm just going to throw it your way.
Brandon Snyder, I think the highest draft pick in Major League Baseball out of this area since I can remember. Out of Westfield, he was drafted by the Orioles. So I guess he was a catcher. He's a catcher shortstop for Westfield. He's a catching prospect for the Orioles. Moved through I guess rookie ball or low A ball pretty quickly. He was dominant at that level. So being a first round pick, those kids are expected to reach the majors a lot quicker than just your average Joe draft pick. So we could see Brandon in Orioles uniform in a couple of years.
We're getting rid of Miguel Tejada, or as some call him, Tejada. They actually may need Brandon to get in there with his bat. And Greg, we got a guy named Brent Jones, a Robinson wrestler.
Brent Jones wrestled to a state championship last year. It was well deserved. He wrestled back after a disappointing tournament the year before. He, of course, also was a standout player for the Robinson football team last year. He's on this list because of his wrestling prowess, and it was well deserved.
And finally, Ashley Mcculloch.
Ashley Mcculloch is one of our favorite athletes here on the Fairfax Sports Report, a Jill of all trades, if you will. Someone who excelled at lacrosse in a big way, did a great job for the Woodson basketball team as they went to the regional finals last year. And even if you wanted to go to last fall, was a star on the Cavaliers field hockey team as well. So but she's on this list strictly because of what she was able to do, helping Woodson to a state title in lacrosse and leading the basketball team to a state tournament.
And also a former guest of this show,
FSN,
I might add.
FSN.
And hey, who's that young go-getter at the end of the list?
And
BJ?
there's a young man on this list that we're very familiar with from this year, Keith Payne. We just saw the highlights. This man ran rampant in the 2005 AAA State Football Championship for 4 touchdowns, 250 yards, 244 yards in the Northern Region Final, and 5 touchdowns in that one. So it's about 500 yards and 9 touchdowns in title games. So that's something to chew on there. And as we've seen the nominees, we're going to go to the Nurny envelope, known as the Nomvelope.
Please hit the mic again, by the way.
And ladies and gentlemen, Keith Payne.
What have you done for me lately?
impressive.
I'm just gonna bring you up.
Thank you.
I'll sit here.
Let me get your envelope out of the way. Thank you.
No.
Oh.
No.
Our next award, a very important award, Team of the Year.
Wow.
And like BJ said, we cover a lot of athletes as our job. We also do cover a lot of teams, which are made up of a lot of athletes.
Thank you.
So let's look at the nominations for Team of the Year. Wakefield Basketball, as we've already said, Tony Bentley was our Coach of the Year. And this is his team, Greg Wyshynski.
Indeed, and they went on an undefeated run, heading into the regional tournament, going and winning the regional championship. Didn't come up with a state title, but still deserves a spot on this list.
Woodson Lacrosse, this is Woodson Girls Lacrosse, another state champion.
Absolutely, and a regional champion and a first-year coach that really made an impact.
Oakton Lacrosse, Oakton was BJ, one of the top teams. Before Robinson. Robinson was a state champion a few years ago. I think as far as Northern Region teams, Oakton is the class of the region right now.
Yeah, third state title in a row, unofficial state title actually, but third state title in a row for Oakton Lacrosse.
Maybe one of these years that'll be an official state title. Oakton football, another Oakton team. Can we say any more about what they did?
Domination station.
12-2 this year. They lost 2 close games to Westfield and Robinson early, and then they went on and won their great run. Oakton cross country, maybe a little bit unexpected this year, but they did a tremendous job, Greg.
Did a heck of a job, and I thought their win in the state championship meet in the Plains was even more impressive because they knocked off a Jefferson team that had a lot of athletes with some familiarity with the course, and it was a great season for Oakton cross country, and they're looking to see how much they can cross over into the track season.
On to the pools. Robinson boys swimming, as we just said, Steve Sharon was one of their top kids. And South Lakes girls swimming. BJ, as we've talked the last couple months, not a lot of good going on at South Lakes. I know their basketball team struggled last year, but state swimming title, good for the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, what a way for them to come out and get something done for the school, and hopefully it's a sign of things to come.
Caroline Bellsa, one of the good swimmers over there, and Scott Brown, heck of a job over there.
Doing a heck of a job, Brownie.
The winner for Team of the Year, Oakton football.
Beautiful.
And Greg, may I introduce you for our final award of the evening.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, the final Nurny.
The final Nurny.
Are you guys
here
nervous?
At the 95th annual Nurny Awards. This is the big moment, the one you've all been waiting for. This is the story of the year. We've done team, we've done athlete, we've done coach. This is the story of the year. And boys, we talk about a lot of stories in this program, and I think we've got a good list of some of the hot topics from this year. Let's take a look at the nominees. Redistricting first. Redistricting, of course, meaning Loudoun Valley playing their regular season games in the Dulles District, their playoff games in the Northern Region. Speaking about Stonebridge coming and becoming a full-fledged member of the Liberty. Speaking about Robinson and Fairfax moving over to the Concord. Lee moving to the Patriot. And Jefferson moving to the Liberty. There's no question that all of those moves, even through one season of sports, had a very significant impact on the Northern Region.
I think just the fact that Loudoun Valley and Stonebridge, came in and really excelled in their first year in AAA. I guess Loudoun Valley, semi in AAA, they played the regular season in AA, but played the playoffs. Loudoun Valley's volleyball team went pretty far in the volleyball. Was a playoff team in football. Stonebridge volleyball team went to the state tournament, and obviously their football team was in the state finals. So
and Valley had an interesting situation where they were playing a combination district, which they didn't get to see a lot of the competition until they got into the tournament. And as we see, we had an upset Westfield's volleyball team upset Loudoun Valley's volleyball team, Valley had a 50-game winning streak going there. So those are traditions that Valley had to put on the line, basically, and that's a big thing for a team coming out of a new district. It's a sign of things to come. Still some turmoil as to how that's going to settle up.
Stonebridge's cheerleading team also won a state title, Greg. One of your favorite sports.
Good catch there, Jeffrey. Eligibility, the next nominee for Story of the Year. This stretches back to football season with Oakton going through the turmoil they went through, with Lansdowne going through the turmoil they went through, and now here in the winter, you see South County girls basketball getting affected by an eligibility issue, and Hayfield boys basketball getting affected with a certain disciplinary eligibility. I don't know how you want to really look at it, but that sort of situation. So that remains a pretty big story. Boys basketball was a huge story going back to last winter, talking specifically about the seasons that the W.T. Woodson boys and the Wakefield boys had, going undefeated, Woodson losing in the semifinals of the Northern Region Tournament, Wakefield going on to the regional championship game. I can't for the life of me remember the last time you had two teams in two districts that dominant and sort of out of the blue. I mean, Wakefield is a pretty good program. Woodson had been steadily building towards something. I don't think anyone thought Woodson was going to have the sort of team they had last year, though. Not
the usual suspects: South Lakes, Herndon, Hayfield. Those three teams right there are usually near the top of that list. But good to see. I know they graduated quite a bit this year, so it'll be interesting to see how they come back this year.
Absolutely. All right, back to the nominees for Story of the Year. The Nationals come to Washington, D.C. And boy, oh boy, if I could just take a moment to pontificate on the Nationals. Wouldn't the team look nice in Virginia these days, where we knew where the stadium was going to be? We had an entire county dedicated to building a stadium instead of trying to figure out which decrepit block of Anacostia to build a stadium on. Honestly, none of this crap would be going on right now if they had put the team in Virginia like they should have the whole time. I've come completely around on that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to go to a Nationals game unless you're actually part of 50 Cent's posse and wearing Kevlar. I don't know. That's just the way I see it. But I mean, get it together already. Let's get this thing done.
If they had put the team in Virginia, the team would actually be a baseball team and not a political pawn for a bunch of people vying to become mayor, like it is in D.C. right now. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
I love those Nick Johnson jerseys.
Hey, well, they just made a big acquisition, by the way.
Alfonso
they just don't know what the heck they're going to do with them.
If the team was in Virginia, they would have acquired someone that would actually want to play the outfield instead of acquiring somebody who's going to make them trade Jose Vidro away. By the way, Vidro would look great on the Mets. I just want to point that out right now.
He is a second baseman.
Indeed he is. Chantilly High School, the next on the Story of the Year nominee list. Chantilly, a school that went through a lot of turmoil earlier in the year, but clearly has turned things around.
It was an exciting summer for Chantilly. Usually summer we're in the office kicking back, but Chantilly, it was a tough one this year. They not only did they really kind of lose their AD, Donna King, who was kind of reassigned, you might say, to Centerville. She was reassigned. They also lost their football coach. There was some questions over where they getting along with players and that sort of stuff. But they came back in the fall. Their football team had a 4-6 season, pretty successful. Knocked off Madison, who was a playoff team, and did pretty well there. So Chantilly looks to be headed in the right course of direction.
South County Secondary opening its doors and basically taking about 3/4 of the student population from Hayfield into its school. That's a huge story this year, and
what
a story
course of direction are they heading in?
They're in an upward course. They're obviously going to be a team and a school that we're going to watch in a big way in the years to come. They've got some quality coaches there that are going to build these programs pretty quickly, and already they've made an impact. Looking specifically at the football team getting a win in their first year, basically playing with a JV team,
and where they may be looking up, Hayfield. It's going to really be interesting to see how they do. I mean, you've already heard a lot of coaches talk about I lost this many players in South County. My talent has gone there. So
precisely. And the final nominee for Story of the Year, boxing returns to George Mason University. Returns? Was there ever boxing there to begin with?
No.
Okay. Boxing comes to George Mason University in the form of Jimmy Lang of the Contender defeating the mighty Perry Ballard in the main event.
And it was an impressive win. I mean, he just totally worked them. It wasn't what we thought we were going to see. We thought we'd see something a bit more, even. But boxing to Mason really was the story. To get a big, athletic, event at the Patriot Center. Obviously, the George Mason boys basketball team, the girls play there. Obviously, a lot of Northern Region sports play there. But to have something like that there, it was a breath of fresh air. I think it had a very good turnout. But yeah, heck of a story this year, and it was quite an enjoyable event.
There was even a fight in the stands. During it was the second or third round. That was probably better than the fight in the ring.
Yep.
All right, boys. The time has come for the final Nurny Award of the evening. I know it's the one we've all been waiting for. It's the Story of the Year Award. You've seen the nominees, and now the winner of the Story of the Year for 2005. The winner is Northern Region Redistricting.
Wow, that's
that?
nice. That's good.
I don't think you can argue with the fact that
Yeah.
Stonebridge doing what they did in football, Valley doing what they did in volleyball, Valley doing what they did in football, plus the fact everyone thought those football games were going to be sparsely attended with the fact that those traditional Northern Region teams would have to schlep out to Loudoun Valley. Lo and behold, those were some of the most well-attended games. They basically doubled the amount of money they made in the D5 playoffs.
Well, go ahead.
And Greg, it's a story that continues.
Indeed.
As we learned, just a couple of weeks ago, Loudoun Valley right now, could be moving on to the Cedar District starting in 2007, 2008.
Exactly.
I'm just interested to see what course of direction that all this takes. I mean, Robinson coming in and making the Concord, like you mentioned, we were talking about this. Really a super district. I mean, it's incredible.
Super district.
What we've seen in the past year as where schools have moved and the implications that they've had. It's been a good, fun story to follow.
So in summary, programs have a course of direction. We cover both teams and athletes.
Right.
Is there anything else we learned tonight?
This is the 347th Nurny
Thank you, sir.
Awards.
Officially.
I'd like to take a moment to thank the people that make the show possible every single week. Of course, I am talking of the underwriters for this fantastic and fabulous program. Ford Quality Care Service Center, servicing all makes and models, 703-383-6299. And our good friends at CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. Folks, remember, coming up in January when this ragged bunch of knuckleheads returns, basketball.
That's the game of the week.
Mayhaps even basketball, the high school game of the week in January. Visit our website for the broadcast schedule, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. Please visit it for our fabulous photo gallery and all that good stuff. Well, boys, I feel like I'm facilitating a spelling bee right now with this positioning on stage. It doesn't make me feel very comfortable.
Comfortable, is that a noun? What is the country
What is the
of
root?
origin?
You can use that in a sentence.
What was your favorite moment from this year in high school sports? You got one?
There's a couple out there. I mean, watching Oakland win the state title, obviously, from having covered them so much. Shoot, just watching my first basketball game with Scotty out there, seeing him light it up for only 28 points, which he was pretty disappointed in, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
There's a couple favorites out there. Watching the Marshall field hockey team beat Woodson in the finals, that was pretty impressive. So
There you go. Jeffrey?
Watching Westfield's graduate Brandon Snyder get drafted in the first round and watching Stonebridge go to the state finals, it was enjoyable for sure.
I just enjoy my job in a big way, and I enjoy doing this show every week. And thanks to Pete Masisco back in the booth for helping us out in a big way with the graphics and all sorts of fun stuff on the show this week. And thanks to Brian Nern for being the greatest producer this side of Michael Gelman on the Regis Show. And that's all for now, folks. Have a happy and healthy holiday season. Nurny Awards next year. The 750th annual Nurny Awards next year. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back shortly. Boy, I'd be really happy if we had Vidro, by the way. I just want to point that out.